Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you in good health and secure. Taking a moment now to acknowledge your practice, especially in our crazy world today and there's some tremendous efforts and wonder going on in the world today. The tendency for our samsaric audience, given the media, whether it's commercial media, cable, internet, whatever, it's kind of like car crashes on the side of the road. It's like it attracts eyeballs, and we live in a capitalist world. Even those who would claim to be communists are driven by capitalism. It's this avarice, the greed, right? Just like Shakyamuni said, our day, our time is the time of the most developed greed and manipulation, right? Anger, backstabbing, anything for a buck. And obviously, given all of that, the violence, the lack of humanity, it's foolishness. It's stupidity. It's not just ignorance. Ignorance takes the form of not even knowing that we don't have to be that way. This is what Buddhism exists for, is to go into people's minds and show them that they have an option, that they can behave and live and experience life to the full without having to steal it from somebody else as though it's something to possess. That's samsara, right? Both sides of the coin. So, again, your practice, so incredibly precious. Thank you for doing that. And thank the practice for bringing you here so that we can share our insights to increase our confidence and to keep our resolve. That's the whole purpose of this resource, along with the website, the mandala store, the bookstore, the ebooks, the free podcasts, the free information on threefoldlotus.com. All the links are in the description. Please use this resource and tell others about it. If you watch a video or hear a podcast, you go, oh man, if so-and-so could just listen to this, it would spark their imagination. They might pursue this path. Share it. It's all bodhisattva work, right? That's what we're on this planet for. That's why we're alive in this moment, to discover for ourselves, and in our excitement and dedication to experience life fully, to share it with others. The more people take on this mindset, this practice, at whatever level they are at, they change the global humanity. The balance moves away from greed and manipulation, anger, and foolishness, and moves the needle more and more toward humanity, peaceful, loving, living. Joy. Could that even be? Of course, there are these things happening, but as I said, we don't tend to hear about it. So let's move that balance, right? With our own lives first. So, in that spirit, chapter 6, which in the BDK translation is simply titled Prediction. In other Lotus Sutra translations, it'll be a long title having to do with the Buddha's prediction of Buddhahood, so on and so forth. So we've been, in the first 5 chapters, talking about how to be bodhisattvas, how to understand the skillful means, the teachings, what they are aimed at achieving. And already some prediction has been made, yeah? That is revolutionary, because for the first time, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas have been told that they too can actually become enlightened. That's in 42 years been kind of taboo. Nope, you're stuck. You're never going to get there. You're too stubborn. But now in the Lotus Sutra, if you understand that the teachings you've been following and dedicating yourself to aren't the end-all be-all. They are not the goal. They are merely developing you toward perceiving the goal. If you get that, if you follow this teaching, the Myoho Renge Kyo, you will, no doubt, attain Buddhahood. Wow. Remember, Shariputra just about jumped out of his skin. Couldn't believe it. All right, prediction. At that time, the Bhagavat had spoken these verses. He addressed the great assembly, proclaiming, quote, "This disciple of mine, Mahakashyapa, in the future will be able to meet 300 myriads of kotas of Buddha Bhagavats, to whom he will pay homage, respect, veneration, and praise, and he will extensively expound the immeasurable great teachings of these Buddhas." Now, what is he saying, these Buddhas, right? We keep hearing, and again, it's the same expedient means. It's the same skillful device, right? Talking about Buddhas as though they're all standing in a line waiting to serve you. I don't mind repeating myself because you need to repeat it to yourself. Buddhism is about the mind, attitude, intent, right? So when this reads, Mahakashyapa will be able to meet these innumerable Buddhas, we are talking about the cycle of birth and death. We are talking about moment to moment to moment, right? When we chant, we want to chant so that each moment we reinstantiate our Buddha-ness. Because let's face it, we are samsaric beings. We are physical, moment-to-moment instantiations of a freight train of karma. And with those 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, remember, we can easily be knocked off our perch of awareness to other mind states. That's the dis-ease or the illness or the sufferings of samsara. We're constantly subject to influence. And so our whole mechanism, our method in Buddhism, is to keep our Buddha in control, to be as Buddha, moment to moment, as we can possibly achieve. This is why we call it training. We're training our mind, which is, right, the monkey mind, just innumerable monkeys screaming at us, our desires, our avarice, our greed, our manipulation. Do this, watch me. And we're trying to silence them down, calm them down, to allow our awareness, our Buddha-ness, our clarity to take over, to be constantly conscious of the Buddha-ness of all phenomena, of this moment-to-moment existence. It's hard work. When you're chanting with your mandala and you're awakening your Gohonzon mind, not too hard. At first it might be, but once you get into that rhythm, you open that door, it's like another universe entirely, right? Just like the Buddha land is not another place, it's this place perceived clearly. It's a shift in experience. It's experiential. Once you feel that, You can never disremember it. You might walk away for whatever reason, struggles in life, struggles in belief, struggles in whatever, but you never forget, and you will return because you know it works. You experience it. But staying in that experience, it's tough because we are, after all, samsaric beings. So, when you meet the Buddhas, it's the Buddhas of every single moment, right? Cycle of birth of Buddhaness and the dissolution of Buddhaness. Birth of Buddhaness, you got to keep it clear. So to meet many Buddhas is to be solidly aware, moment to moment, for, right, what we perceive as time, our momentum in Buddhaness. Makes sense, right? In his last body, and they use this a lot, this is really reference to pre-Lotus Sutra teachings, but here it is in the Lotus Sutra because, again, teaching skillfully to those who've learned these terminologies, they identify, right, identity, with this last body. But that's the truth of Buddhism writ clearly. That what he's not saying is this is our first and last body, right? Because our lifetime as a human is our opportunity to awaken this Buddhaness so that we can experience this lifetime in samsara with enlightenment. That's why the whole idea that can only be achieved after you have this life is ridiculous, because there's no mind there, wherever, there, everywhere, right? It's just quiescence. And quiescence does not equal an experience. Experience is samsaric. So this lifetime is our unique, precious, brief opportunity to perceive this magnificent process of life, the engine of life. And through that awareness, slough off all of the stress, anxiety, and unease of grasping and holding that is the samsaric experience. We want to liberate ourselves from that experience so we can experience all of it without the stress and dissatisfaction and avarice and so on and so forth. Buddhism is about this life, living it fully. In his last body, he will become a Buddha called Rashmi Prabhasa, a Tathagata, a completely enlightened, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well-departed, knower of the world, unsurpassed, tamer of humans, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha Bhagavat. I skipped one word because it just doesn't belong. Arhat. That's a fault of this translation. What can you do? Again, there's an adherence in the BDK to earlier teachings that doesn't really belong in this, what Shakyamuni is calling in this translation, the Mahayana. The one great vehicle. But another term that I just read that might make you raise an eyebrow is tamer of humans. What does that imply? What does that mean? Well, in samsara, being constantly craving and clinging, we are acting more like beasts than we are humanity, aren't we? The world of animality, the realm of animality, and all of its corollaries, all of the others around it, yeah? So to tame that is just to quiet those realms of influence. That's what that means, right? His world will be called Avabasaprata, in the kalpa called Mahavyuya. Okay, again, this is expedient means storytelling, trying to create an environment, a mental environment, where Mahakashyapa can see himself in the Buddha land. What will life experience be like when you're consistently, many Buddhas, moment to moment, in your Buddha-ness? That's all that is. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 intermediate kalpas. Remember, I've talked about time, and you can look in the first volume of Buddhism reference about time. How we experience time is time, right? And when we're in love or in joy or in the experience of lightness, whatever it is that brings us there, certainly when we chant and invoke Buddha-ness, time can seem irrelevant, right? How many Buddhists have you, Nichiren Shoshu, or not Nichiren Shoshu, but Nichiren doctrine, Lotus Sutra Buddhists, have you communicated with who've told you that they chant for hours, right? You lose track of time. You watch the clock, you watch the clock, you watch the clock, and then suddenly you don't look at the clock anymore because you've shifted. You've shifted from samsaric work, effort, to flowing. And you're flowing moment to moment, Buddha-ness, Buddha-ness, right? And it seems like time could go on you almost have to force yourself to stop. And then the irony is that when you stop, you feel like, that was brief. Might have been an hour, might have been 2 hours. And you think, wow, I've chanted for a while. 2 hours, it didn't seem that long. But when you're in it, you're not even thinking about time. Time is irrelevant, right? It could go on for centuries, and I know it's hyperbolic, but seriously, your sense of time just kind of goes away. You're just in the flow, yeah? Any of you creatives out there, when you're painting or surfing or you're in that activity that requires your complete involvement, programmers, whatever it is you do that gets you in that flow, you know what I'm talking about, right? You lose track of time, quote unquote. Right? So when you're in Buddha-ness, time becomes irrelevant. So that's what's meant with these kinds of statements, right? Your lifespan, moment to moment, cycle of birth and death, life, becomes immeasurable, quite literally. The true Dharma will last in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 20 intermediate kalpas. You're in the flow. His world will be adorned, and there will be no dirt, shards, thorns, excrement, or other impurities. The earth will be level without irregularities, hollows, or hills. The earth will be made of lapis lazuli with jeweled trees and rows. Golden cords will line the borders of these roads, which will be scattered with precious flowers, and everywhere will be pure. Now, what does this call back to? If you haven't read it, you should recognize all of this rhetoric from the very first teaching he gave, the Avatamsaka Sutra. Flower garland, the Kigon, whatever you call it. But could you imagine? He comes out of his meditations having attained this clarity, this Buddha-ness. And he starts to share it with his few disciples that have been following him, dedicated to him for years. And all that comes out of his mouth is these kind of statements. The roads are lined with lapis lazuli and the golden flowers, and all the fruits are there all the time. And, and people, okay, he's finally lost it. Could you imagine? Yeah, that's why he didn't teach that sermon for very long, just 2-3 weeks, right? It's a long sermon, too, if you've read the Avatamsaka. It's a large volume. But this calls back to it, right? What he's describing is the Buddha land. In other words, your available experience of this lifetime is just, it's incredible. It's, right? Magnificence all the time. How do you describe that to somebody? So he's been laying the groundwork for over 40 years so that you can understand what this potential is for you to experience. And now we're in the Lotus Sutra, so he's saying, this is the time. This is the time for this to happen. Right? The continuity. In this world, there will be immeasurable thousands of kotis of bodhisattvas, as well as innumerable shravakas. All malice will be far removed, and even though Mara, the god of samsaric world, right, and his minions will be there, they will all protect the Buddha Dharma. So this is the version you sometimes hear about in discussions of world peace, or Kozen Rufu. That's where it comes from, right there. In other words, when you attain this more consistent Buddha-ness, and the land becomes your Buddha land, your experience of this maximal potential of your life, of life in general, you will influence so many people around you. You will be joined as like-minded people by other bodhisattvas. There will be many bodhisattvas. It's inevitable by your influence and the influence they have, on and on and on, right? I told two, they told two, right? But that doesn't mean all of the samsaric physical universe disappears. It's still there, and there are many who are not yet on the path or just beginning on the path. So everything still exists. Nothing just evaporates because suddenly, ooh, you turn the light on, right? Like my attic thing. You know, you go up in the attic and you're stumbling all over the boxes and ladders and whatever, and then you turn the light on and suddenly it's clear where everything is. It didn't go away. It's just that your perception, your knowing of the situation is obvious, right? So this is what he's saying. There will be, Mara will still be there. The world will still be there. But instead of being an obstacle, it will instead support you. Oh, yeah, sir. Oh, ma'am. Yeah. Here, go this way, right? Let me open the door for you. Rather than giving you dirty looks and saying you're some strange creature, which I have experienced. Thereupon the Bhagavat, wanting to explain the meaning of this further, spoke in these verses. Here we go. I tell you, O monks, that I see with the Buddha eye, right? That Kashyapa in the future will become a Buddha. After innumerable kalpas have passed, in the future he will meet and pay homage to 300 myriads of kotis of Buddha Bhagavats and practice the pure path of discipline and integrity, seeking for the wisdom of the Buddhas. I want you to be I want this to be second nature. when you read these things to know what this is about. When he says, after innumerable kalpas have passed, we've talked about kalpas. I have a definition of kalpas in the first volume of Buddhism Reference. We tend to think of kalpas as extremely long period. In fact, the common translation is an eon. How long is an eon? It's a damn long time, isn't it? But again, Buddhism is about experience, the mind, attitude, and intent. So a kalpa is also, you might slash, right, an eon slash the experience of drawn out time. Like when you're waiting for the toast to pop out of the toaster, or the microwave to get done heating your soup, and you stare at it, right? A pot doesn't boil if you're staring at it, waiting for it to boil, right? All of the cliches you've heard about time. A kalpa is that. It's the sensation of endless duration. So when he says after innumerable kalpas, he's not just saying that kalpa is a long time. He's saying many, many kalpas. Because sometimes it feels like, man, I chanted for hours last night, and now I'm chanting this morning, and I've been doing that all week, and I fail to see any advancement, any change. I'm not seeing a result, right? Danger, Will Robinson. Don't let that take over your mind. Believe me, your constant awareness, your invocation of your Buddha mind, it's affecting your life and your environment. And after all, when somebody complains about I don't see a result, they're really complaining about their environment. Well, it may be that your karmic freight train has a lot of work to rearrange for you to finally get a result. And your samsaric brain and mind might not be that clear-sighted as to witness the result until some time has passed and you look around and you go, wow, a lot has changed. I was unaware. You have to give yourself time to realize the very thing that you're trying to realize. You may not know from which place, vantage point, you may see your Buddha land. You may have been looking in the wrong direction the whole time, right? So it may take a long time, but in that future, in those future moments when that Buddha land becomes viewable, then you'll meet and pay homage to the hundreds, myriads of kodas of Buddha Bhagavats that have been there all along, right? Every daimoku you've chanted, a Buddha, right? Think of it that way. Your Buddha-ness. And in order to get there, practice the pure path of discipline and integrity, right? Don't lose your resolve. Don't start going, I'm doing I chanted for a while, blah, blah, blah. No, savor every daimoku. Know that every invocation is deeply meaningful. Seeking for the wisdom of the Buddhas, of your moment-to-moment Buddhas, Buddha-ness. All right. Having offered respect to the highest and best of humans, and having completely grasped the ultimate wisdom, he will become a Buddha while in his last body. In other words, from moment to moment, you will have manifested Buddha-ness. His land will be pure, the Buddha land. The earth will be made of lapis lazuli, here we go again, and many jeweled trees will be in rows along roads bordered with golden cords, and those who see it will be gladdened. The air will be always filled with pleasant fragrance, and many beautiful flowers will be strewn about. I did something when I was young that this recalls me to. I remember an experience. We were driving across Canada, long drive. And I was 10 years old. And we went through at night a very foggy, almost swampy kind of area. It was just humid, a lot of trees, but not very tall trees. There may have been some, but it was dark. I didn't see them. Anyway, the point is, we ran into a whole cloud of skunk stank. I don't know if my father hid it when we were driving, but it seemed like that smell persisted and persisted, and it was so foul, I actually was stopping myself breathing. I was worried that I would pass out because I couldn't convince myself to breathe. It was so bad. After that experience, I decided to do something. And I don't know why at that young age. Maybe it's because I was surrounded at a young age with martial artists that talked about this philosophical aspect of the martial arts a lot. But this idea of mind over matter, of if you could convince your mind to think differently about something, you could actually make that real. And I thought, and I was really into that as a kid. I'm not sure where the source was from, but at any rate, I had seen a program about perfume, how perfumes are made. And I was shocked to find that the oils from skunk were often used in the most expensive fragrances. How could that be? Well, obviously, as a chemist could explain to us, there are certain chemical components in that spray of the skunk that give it its strength and longevity, its lasting presence. And for a perfume manufacturer, makes a lot of sense, right? That would be a very precious commodity. And I thought to myself, from now on, when I smell skunk, I'm going to force myself to breathe it in. I'm actually going to say in my mind, this is of perfumes. And my only resistance to it is that I'm unfamiliar with the scent. And I'll just breathe it in and go, wow, that is amazing. That will be my mindset from now on. And do you know, to this day, that conversation happens in my mind, and it makes me smile. It's every time I smell a skunk, either faintly or strongly, I'm like, man, that's amazing. I did that through training my mind. So when he says the air will always be filled with a pleasant fragrance and many beautiful flowers will be strewn about, I think of that from my own experience as, well, when your Buddha-ness is at work, those samsaric judgments, right, born of avarice and clinging, which have an opposite effect of also the opposite, not just clinging, but what's the word I'm looking for? The avoidance, it's not the word I want, but, right, the revulsion, they're really the same thing. They're a clinging of a different sort. Well, you let go of all of that, and everything is a magnificent experience. I get that. Just from my little skunk example, I get that mentally, right? Various wonderful things will adorn the earth, which will be level without hills or hollows. There will be an incalculable number of bodhisattvas there who will have the power of self-control. There's a tip. Be versed in transcendental powers. I think that was a transcendental power, to turn skunk from a choking experience to a wonderment experience. That's transcendent. And who will preserve the sutras of the Mahayana taught by the Buddhas. Again, this is instruction for bodhisattvas, isn't it? The multitude of Sravakas, bearing their last bodies free from corruptions, heirs of the Dharma king, will also be unreckonable. Their number will be impossible to calculate, those who are set upon the path. Even with the divine eye, the lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 intermediate kalpas. The true Dharma will last in the world for 20 intermediate kalpas, and the semblance Dharma will also last for 20 intermediate kalpas. Thus will things be with the Bhagavat Rasmi Prabhasa. At that time, Mahamaudgalyayana, Subhuti, and Mahakatyayana were all charged with excitement. And with palms pressed together, they attentively gazed at the Bhagavat, never turning their eyes from him. They immediately spoke these verses in unison. Now, these are the other disciples, monks of Mahakashyapa's stature, right? And they're going to now talk to or respond to Shakyamuni. But you also see, remember I've told you when we sit ourselves erect and attentive, you hear these words, at our Butsudan, our altar, and we focus in on Myoho of our scroll, our mandala, and we penetrate our Gohonzon mind to experience Buddha-ness. This is, at that time, charged with excitement, palms pressed together, they attentively gazed at the Bhagavat. Never turning their eyes from him, they immediately spoke this in verse. So, right, this action of invocation, of expectation, right, of this delivery of our Buddha-ness, it's all in our ritual, if you will, our samsaric ritual of using these tools that Nichiren has given us to do exactly this. Reenact the ceremony in the sky. Watch my video on presence at the Butsudan. That's what it's all about. So this is personal. This is talking about our commitment, our behavior, our practice. Where are we time-wise? All right, that's long enough for today. We will take up the verse of these great monks. Okay. And continue chapter 6 of predictions in the next video. And so with that, I want to thank you again for your resolve, your dedicated practice, your willingness to study so that you can deepen your commitment, your conviction. That's what this is about, right? Strengthening our practice. So thank you for that. Don't forget, take a second to like and subscribe. It's a Bodhisattva act. It helps us grow the Sangha. And make use of the links for all the free information, and as well as, if you can, help support this effort through the purchase of ebooks, printed books, so on. Patrons on Patreon, PayPal. Man, am I thankful for you guys, especially lately, but I won't get into that. It's personal. I mentioned it in the video, and I feel like shouldn't have brought that up. I don't ever want to be a downer for you guys. The purpose of this resource is to support the strength of your practice, build your confidence. And so from your comments and your emails, I'm incredibly gratified that we are succeeding in doing that. So keep it up, keep your practice strong, be kind to yourself, take care of your health, right? And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.